Is it normal to not know what you want? Welcome to question 3. Answer is yes, of course, absolutely. And I think we need to start there because there can be so much judgment wrapped around this very question. It can seem as though everybody else knows exactly what they want, especially in the age of social media. They know where they're going, they know what they want to do, they have the plan. They are pursuing the career or the relationship or the money or the house or the lifestyle. And you are sitting there thinking, I don't even know what I want for supper. Or you're sitting there with a guppy mouth when somebody asks you. But I think there is an important connection between those two things. There are the big wants, the life wants. What do I want for myself? What do I want in terms of who I want to be? What kind of work do I want to do? How do I want to show up in my life? Who do I want to share my life with? And then there are the smaller ones, like, what do I want to eat? Do I actually want to go out tonight? Do I like this? Is strawberry yogurt my flavor? Am I tired? Do I want to rest? Would I rather stay home? What do I want right now? And very often, we don't lose touch with the big ones all at once. It actually happens quite gradually. We lose touch with ourselves through the hundreds of tiny moments where we don't answer what we want. Somebody asks you where you want to eat, and you say, I don't mind. They ask what you want to do, and you say, whatever you want. You're very agreeable. You agree to something you don't really want to do because it feels easier than disappointing somebody. You stop voicing your preferences because you don't want to be difficult. And over time, I don't mind turns into I don't know. Not only about supper, but about your work, your relationships, your future, your whole life, yourself, who you are. And you can eventually wake up and think, whose life am I actually living? And I think this is especially common if you have a tendency to people please, or perhaps you signed what I call the good girl contract or the nice guy. It's that unspoken agreement that says, be easy, be agreeable, don't ask for too much, don't upset anyone. Make sure everybody else is comfortable. And somewhere along the way, it may have become safer to defer to other people. It could have happened in childhood, most likely, most often. Maybe it was more painful to stand your ground than it was to give in. Maybe you weren't allowed to. Maybe wanting something created conflict. Perhaps expressing a preference led to criticism, rejection, or disappointment. It's often the case. Maybe nobody taught you that it was okay to want what you wanted. And maybe nobody taught you how to cope with the feelings that come when you don't get it. I have that at the moment with my little boy, because that is a big part of wanting that we don't always talk about. Wanting makes us very vulnerable. The moment I admit that I want something, I also have to face the possibility that I might not get it. And I might be disappointed or angry or resentful. Somebody might say no. I might fail. I might have to make a difficult choice in that moment. I might need to advocate for myself. I might discover that what I want is different from the people around me and what they want from me. So sometimes not knowing becomes this kind of protection. If I don't know what I want, I don't have to risk asking for it. I don't have to risk choosing it. I don't have to feel the loss of not getting it or the responsibility. That doesn't mean you're broken. It just may mean that wanting has become this very emotionally expensive place for you. And when that happens often enough, you can begin to minimize yourself. You stop checking in. You stop asking. You can become very good at reading the room and understanding what everybody else needs and adjusting yourself accordingly. But in that process, you also become less able to hear yourself. So yes, it's very normal not to know what you want. And I also want to say that it's okay. I don't want you to add another layer of shame by thinking you should already have the answer. You don't need to know what you want for the next 30 years. In fact, I'd invite you to definitely not do that. You don't need to suddenly produce a 5-year plan. The first step is simply becoming aware that you don't know, and it's okay not to know. That awareness itself matters. Because once you can say, I have lost touch with what I want, you can begin to walk yourself back to yourself. You can start noticing again. You can start with the small questions. Do I actually want this? Does this feel good to me? Am I saying yes because I mean yes, or because it just makes everything a whole lot easier? Am I saying yes because I don't want to deal with someone else's reaction? What would I choose if I didn't have to explain my choice? And the trick is you don't need to force an immediate answer. At this moment, you're just beginning to rebuild the relationship that you have with your wants, with yourself. And I think social media makes this a whole lot harder because it creates this enormous assumption that everybody else knows. Everyone seems to be very confidently pursuing something. That's the outward picture. More money, a bigger business, a particular body, a certain kind of relationship. And of course, what they show is them obtaining it, right? Maybe it's a beautiful home or a life filled with travel. And they may be pursuing those things very determinedly. But determination does not necessarily mean clarity. You can be incredibly successful at chasing something without ever asking why you want it or what feeling it gives you. And this is where it becomes useful to look underneath the thing. For example, you might say, I want loads of money. Who doesn't, right? Fair enough. But what do you believe the money will give you? Is it freedom? Is it safety? Is it choice? Is it rest? Maybe it's power. Or it could be the ability to even leave a situation you no longer want to be in. Maybe it's the feeling that nobody gets to control you. Because the money may be the visible want, but underneath it, there is often a deeper yearning, a deeper desire. I'll tell you a story. When I was growing up, my mother used to say something she had read somewhere. We don't buy things. We buy the feelings we believe those things will give us. And I think that is true of so much of what we chase. We are often not pursuing the thing itself. We are pursuing the feeling we think the thing will create in us. The job title might represent respect. The house might represent safety. The relationship might represent belonging. The successful business might represent freedom. And the money might represent agency. Perfectly organized life, I wish, might represent peace. But when we don't look underneath, we can become very attached to one particular picture of how that feeling is supposed to arrive, or the fact that it might already be there. See, I had a client come into my practice with a very specific picture of the life he wanted. There was a particular job title, a very specific salary, and the amount of money he wanted saved. A very detailed idea of the kind of woman he wanted to be with. And on the surface, those were the ones. Perfectly normal, perfectly natural things we hear about all the time. But as we spoke and we kept going underneath, layer by layer, those things, something simpler emerged. What he really wanted was a sensation, a feeling of familyness. He wanted togetherness. He wanted intimate connection. He wanted to belong somewhere. But he had this very fixed idea of what that was supposed to look like. It needed to arrive in a particular package. And because he had that idea, he kept missing it. So when life didn't match the picture, it was though he wasn't getting what he wanted. But once he became very clear about the experience he was actually longing for, rather than being so attached to what it should look like, something in him opened up and in his life, which is like magic. There's suddenly more room for him to recognize family in a much different form. And about 18 months later, he entered a relationship with somebody who already had a child. It was by no means the exact picture he had originally imagined. And he also had to say goodbye to a lot of things in his life to make room for it. It wasn't his biological child, and it wasn't precisely what he thought he was ordering from life, manifesting. But he had created a family. He has the togetherness. He has the connection he longed for. He has the underlying experience he's been desiring, even though the outer picture looks very different. And I think this is the important message when we are trying to understand what it is that we want. Sometimes we do know. We just know it as a picture, a salary, a house, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, the dog, a partner, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, a job, or a move to another country. But what we haven't understood was what that picture actually represents for us. And sometimes we genuinely don't know because we have been spending years listening outwardly, listening to our parents, excuse me, to our partners, seeing it in our culture through social media, the expectations that lie around us, listening to what a successful life is supposed to look like, rather than noticing how we actually want our life to feel. So yes, I'll say it again. It's totally normal to not know what you want. Many people don't. However, you are not behind, and you are definitely not failing at life. And you are certainly not alone. It's a journey I've taken and am still taking. You may have simply spent a very long time becoming good at knowing what everybody else wants from you, or your shoulds, and now you're learning to listen in a slightly different direction. So don't begin with the enormous question of what do I want from my entire life? Begin smaller, experimenting. Where have I become used to saying, I don't mind? Notice it. When I actually do mind. What have I been telling myself I want when it's actually somebody else's desire for me? What do I believe that that thing would allow me to feel if I had it? You do not need to know the whole answer yet. All I'm asking you to do is to begin noticing where you stopped asking yourself the question.